Hi guys, and welcome to 4 tips I'm going to share with you to get your snake feeding if you've had trouble, and also for the people who have just started feeding their snakes, or if maybe they've got their first snake. A couple of these tips have been given to me by a couple of people that I know, also going on forums. Just a disclaimer, these tips, they're not 100% proven, they're just some ideas to try and get your snake feeding and to get a better response. So let's move on to the first tip. So, tip number 1, try and get the rodent nice and warm, or the prey, let's say prey. So try and get the prey nice and warm before you actually feed the prey to your snake. So even if you're at the start of the day and you want to defrost the prey, you can do that at the start of the day, don't use any water, leave it. Then when you come to the evening, put some water in, warm water, not boiling, not from the kettle, we don't want to cook it. We just want to put it nice and warm, give it a couple of minutes, take it out, make sure you drain it. You don't want too much substrate actually sticking to it, and then you don't want the snake taking in too much substrate. So make sure that you do that. That can get a really good response, especially because it can, a lot of the smells of the prey can come off as well as it's warm. Kind of like it's steaming, but not that hot, obviously, we don't want to go that hot. But yeah, so they get a lot better response. They pick it up a lot quicker as well with their vision, and yeah, I really recommend that. If you're still having trouble, then let's move on to tip 2, see if that can help you. Right, let's move on to tip number 2. So this tip is one that not many people know about, and it worked for Rosie, who's one of my largest female ball pythons, just down there at the bottom left. That is to clear out your entire enclosure, or your box, or whatever. Make sure to wash it, and then put new substrate in, and also bathe the snake as well. And then give it a couple of days and try again. Use tip 1 and try again. Reason behind this, a lot of people have said, is that it removes any unwanted smells. So sometimes the snake can get confused, it can get in some sort of state that it doesn't want to feed because of the certain smells and whatnot. I'm not entirely sure if this is correct, but it did work for Rosie, so there may have been other underlying issues that I resolved by doing that. I'm not too sure, but give it a go. Also, as I say, use tip 1 for this, move that in and give that a go when you feed them. But yeah, hopefully you get a lot better response, and if you're still having trouble, let's move on to tip number 3. Coming at ya, tip number 3! Tip number 3 is to change the size of the prey. So if you've got a very large snake, you're feeding large rats, like I did with Rosie, let's actually make that smaller, so move down to a large mouse. Reason being is snakes can actually start to become picky, especially ball pythons. Very common in ball pythons. Sometimes they'll only ever eat large mice. They'll go off large rats and they'll never eat them again. So best to try and switch that up a bit. And as I say, use tip 1 for that, make sure you heat it up. And yeah, sometimes it can work. Maybe move over to poultry. So move over to actual like a quail or a baby chick or something like that, just to see if there's any sort of different response. But as I say, still having trouble, I'm gonna move on to my last tip, which will be tip number 4. Okay, tip number 4 is to move the prey around. Don't keep it stationary. So when you've got the forceps, don't leave it right in front of the face of the python. As I say, boa constrictors, all different types of snakes have different feeding responses. Some will just go for it instantly. However, if you are having trouble, which I imagine you are because you come onto this video, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to move it around a bit more in the box. So just back and forth in front of the snake, and you'll see that they'll start to sort of get the hang of it. They'll start to lock on and be interested. They'll start to stick their tongue out a bit more, get that scent. And as long as you start to tip 1, then it's just going to help. So that's all I've really got in regards to all my tips. If you're still having trouble, and you are getting worried and it's getting past that 6-month point of not feeding, then you kind of maybe need to go to the vets. So depending on when you live, in the UK there's not many vets that actually specialise in exotic pets, unfortunately, but in America there are a lot more. It may lead to force feeding. but I do not recommend that you do that. If you've never done it before, do not do that. Always take the snake down to the vets, especially if they're looking like they're underweight, so looking quite concaved underneath, and very light for their age and their size. Then definitely go down to the vets, get the snake checked out. But as I say, there are lots of snakes who do leave off food for a couple of months. Maybe most of it's due to breeding as well if they're adults. Some people like to, with females especially, stop feeding around breeding season, even if they're not at that age, just to get the snakes in that sort of cycle. As I say, everybody's different, but hopefully the tips have helped you out. Let me know in the comments if it's worked, and if you've got any other ways of getting your snakes to feed, please put it down in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button. Thank you very much guys for watching. Big ups to Jim here, being an awesome guy, being really chill. Thank you very much guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. See you guys!